Right, into the world of Visual Basic. So bear in mind, this is old tech. So this is Visual Basic 6. This comes all the way from 1998. This was the last version of the original Visual Basic and was 32-bit. So the early versions of Visual Basic worked with Windows 3.1. In fact, Windows 3 I think was the first it worked with. And it was known then as a rapid application tool. So the whole idea is that you could rapidly put applications together, which you could. One of the beauties of this platform is the fact that you could drag and drop and put various bits and pieces onto your forms. It was really easy to make user interfaces. So technically, it was called event-driven programming, which it kind of is. A lot of people get that confused with object-oriented programs. So it uses objects on the various different forms and bits and pieces, but they're not strictly speaking the same as objects when you're talking about object orientation. But anyway, let's see how it works. So principally what we have is we've got different objects here. This is a really, really simple program. So we have a form here, which effectively a form is like a piece of user interface, but it actually has a class glued to it as well. So within your form you have properties, and the properties are all down here. So a good example of the sort of properties you can do is change the background color. You can use custom colors, custom fonts. You can change the size, behavior of the form. You can add on the, say for example, the minimize button, the maximize buttons, all of that kind of stuff. So you've got quite a lot that you can change. You can even wire in a help system if you want to, as well as change its sizing. So bear in mind that all of this was before what we have now to deal with, which is responsive. So we're making things work on different screen sizes. Back then, the whole idea was if you could make it work on 800 by 600, you were doing pretty well. If you could go further than that, then that was happy days. So generally speaking, things like making forms resize and adapt the control position wasn't such a big consideration then. Or if you could do it, you had to kind of put it all in manually and literally pick up sizing changes to the forms and reconfigure everything. There are smarter ways to do it now, but things were different back in 1998. So the other thing is you've got modules which are effectively, if you like, global functions and routines that you can run, and you've got classes. And we don't have class inheritance like we would with C++ or C#, so we can't have like a base class and inherit from it. But that said, we can do an awful lot with it. So everything in Visual Basic is built on something called OLE, Object Link Embedding, and this has been around since the very, very early days of Windows. The basic idea is that we can build common interfaces or common code that we can share across lots and lots of different applications. So even in its earliest manifestation, we could see, say for example, like an Excel spreadsheet that we could have embeddable into a different application. So it could be something like your email client having a spreadsheet in it. You click on a spreadsheet and suddenly you're in Excel. So you're reusing components across the whole of the Windows ecosystem. And Visual Basic is much the same thing. It taps into OLE and builds a layer over the top of that called COM, Component Object Model. Now, even at the time, C++ apps were using COM quite heavily. It was a nice interchangeable format, and you'd find that then software development tools were being built, or APIs, if you like, that allowed software platforms to talk to each other, and they would expose a series of COM libraries, which effectively were like a precursor to an API. In fact, they were an API. The difference is you're talking an API at local level on the machine that allows two software platforms to talk to each other behind the scenes. Whereas, of course, now we think of APIs, we think about pushing and pulling data across the web, but that wasn't such a big thing 20 years ago. So just to give you a bit of an idea of what's going on behind the scenes in VB is I'll show you quickly the object browser. So the object browser allows you to see what's going on within inside the program, what available objects you have. So we've got a couple here. For example, we've got the COVID application, and we can see within our form we've got a couple of custom functions here, but generally these are all the different properties. So they're like variables and things that we can change, attributes. And then we also have the class that we've created here as well. And you see they've got a couple of variables here, so these little statistics, and we've got all the functions. So the other thing that we'll see then, as well as methods, which are functions if you like, and we've got variables which are kind of like properties, is you will find, if we perhaps look at a form, we might see some events as well. Can we see an event on there? No, maybe not. We'll have to add one in later. So an event is much like an event hook in WordPress. It's exactly the same thing. So it's kind of really like a function that's triggered by something else, and we can hook into it just as you do with WordPress. It's exactly the same model. The WordPress model is not a new one. So the beauty of something like Visual Basic is the fact that we can literally just drag and drop user interface components. If I want to put a new button on there, I can literally take it, drag it on there, change the text. There we go. Put a different piece of, for example, functionality on it. There we go. I've now got a cancel button. I can just change the position round, move it wherever on the form. Not only that, is if I then want to actually put some functionality into this, it's so easy it's untrue. Literally, all I do is double click it. There you go, and it's created a event handler for me. Now say for example, if I just do me.close, sorry, I think it's actually form.close, can't remember now, this is going back some. That should then automatically call a function that just closes the form as soon as I click the cancel button. Now the beauty of the way that VB works is in its debugging, if I'm honest. That's where it gets really good. So first of all, where it goes to rapid application, we can drag and drop forms, put functionality together very, very quickly, literally all drag and drop. But what we're going to do today is we're just going to have a quick look at the COVID tracker, which again, we put in a postcode, we do 2 API lookups. Now, bear in mind, this was long before JSON ever existed, so I've put a bit of a hack in, to be honest with you. There aren't really any JSON libraries around for VB anymore, or never were in fact, so I've just basically done some basic string manipulation, looked for the attributes that I want, and just pulled out the results. The only other addition is I've put in an external reference to a library called WinHTTP. This basically allows me to do a HTTP request. And here's a good example then. We've got some events, we've got some methods, and we've got some properties. So this is actually a COM library. So this would have been written in a different language like C++. It would have exposed a COM interface that allows it then to be shareable across the whole OLE platform. So in theory, you could also embed that into a .NET app. So the whole idea is doesn't matter what code you write that in, whether what language, but if you expose the same COM interface, it's then interchangeable over anything that talks that language. So again, we've got a third-party library here that I could pull that in. And just to give you an idea of how many of these are, I mean, even now on this Windows 10 machine, you can see there are a lot. And that's smaller than it used to be. So the obvious ones are connectivity with database. You're going to see a lot of that, or WinSock, or scripting runtime. If you want to be dealing with file access, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of them. Okay, right. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to pick up my code. So this is the OK button, and I'm going to hit F9 and I'll put a breakpoint in, and I'm going to run the code and we're going to walk through it, and I'm going to show you boys what you're missing out on these days. Okay, so here I am, just like any other day, running my program. I've put this postcode in here. I'm just going to literally click this button. I'm now dropped into my code, so it's stopped. Now if I can literally walk through my code. I just use the F8 key like this, and it allows me just to drop through. I can literally hover over the variables, and I can see then if I just do